Hello, today I'm going to talk a little bit about the structure of the FIA database and how to do some simple analyses. First, I want to give you a little bit of context about how the data are structured. So we have three tables that are the most interesting in the FIA database: the plot, the cond, and the tree files. Each of these tables has a column in them called CN, or plot CN. There's one row for every plot in the plot table. There's at least one row for every condition in the cond table. And for plots that have trees measured on them, there are rows in the tree table. A condition is basically like a different land type. It could be a different reserved class, a different owner group, forest type, a stand size, a stand origin, in other words, whether planted or natural, density class, or a canopy cover percentage. So in this first plot, there's one condition. In other words, let's just say it's all forested and it's all the same value all throughout the plot for these condition defining variables. So we wouldn't map a different condition. In the cond table, there is a code called cond status code, and that's 1 for accessible forest because it's all forest. There is one row in the condition table. In the condition table, there's also a column called cond ID, and it would be labeled as cond ID 1 because it's the first condition encountered. And in this case, since the plots are 1/6 of an acre in total, the cluster of 4 plots is 1/6 of an acre, there's that much area accessible. That's just for your information. So in this plot, we actually have 2 forested conditions, one that's light green and one that's dark green. And we have one non-forest condition, which is this brown condition. So there would be one row in the plot table still, because it's still one plot. But in this case, we'd have 3 rows in the condition table. Cond ID 1 would be the light green. Cond ID 2, because we go the way a clock goes, in other words, starting at the center and then going at 12 o'clock and around the horn here. Cond ID 2 would be the brown condition, and Cond ID 3 would be the dark green condition, because it's the last one we would get to as we go around, the last new condition. There would be 2 rows in the tree table, because even though we have a forested condition, we might not measure any trees there. We definitely, based on these rules, don't measure any trees in the non-forest condition. So there would be 2 rows in the tree table in this example. They would both be labeled as cond ID 1 because the light green condition, the light green part of the plot, is cond ID 1 because it was the first one that we came to. And in this case, even though it's non-forest, we still consider it accessible. So 1/6 of an acre of this plot is accessible. So finally, we get to our third plot. Here we have 2 conditions. One is forested, and one is non-sampled. And it might be non-sampled because there's a fence around this subplot, and the field crews can't get in there, and it's just too dangerous to climb over the fence or illegal or whatever. So we call it a non-sampled condition. And there's a cond status code for that, which you can figure out from looking at the database manual. I believe it's code 5. So there would be 2 rows in the condition table for this plot. Cond ID 1 would be the green condition, and Cond ID 2 would be the red condition. And again, these would vary by cond status code. They would have different cond status codes. There would be 3 rows in the tree table, all of them labeled with Cond ID 1 for the reasons I described before. Now in this case, since the whole plot's 1/6 of an acre, but only 3/4 of it is accessible, 1/6 times 3/4 is 3/24, or 1/8 of the acre is accessible. That's just something to be aware of. So given what I've just described, and given these rules for what happens in order for the field crews to define a condition, the point of what I'm talking about is that since you know the plot ID, so each plot has its own ID, and each condition has its own ID, and you label each tree with the cond ID that it's sitting on, You can thus implement the joins. In other words, you can link the cond data to the plot data and the tree data to the cond data and the plot data, and do your summaries like we're going to do in the Excel file.